It's
Hi,
good to see you.
Tabitha.
Hey,
Good
mama,
evening.
aunties. Thank you guys for joining me tonight to talk about our latest project that Good Light Productions is having. So I'll introduce myself, I guess, formally. Anyway, you guys know who I am, but for those who are friends who are watching this video, I am Tabitha Matthews. I serve as the artistic director for Good Light Productions. And Good Light Productions seeks to bring out stories that have been kept in the dark for too long and to shed light on those stories and push back darkness. And I am the, every year we do a production, and this year I am the featured artist for our annual production. And I am the playwright of Penny's Kids, which if you have been following us on Instagram and Facebook, you probably have seen many things that are out, that many posts that are out right now to just keep you aware and promote the play, which will be a virtual experience this fall. Which means everything will be virtual. Everything's virtual because of COVID. So we are venturing our first time into virtual theater. So it's going to be really good. So please continue to tune in. But I'm excited tonight because I have been able to pull these three beautiful women together who are in my life and talk to them about Penny's Kids. So Penny's Kids is originally a book, and I will show that to you now. Penny's Kids is originally a book that basically recounts the story of my late grandmother and my aunts and uncles' experience with her as she struggled with mental illness and the upbringing in their childhood. And I received this book. This book was written back in 2003. So it's been a long time. And when I first read it, I was really struck by the stories in here. And it really, as I mentioned, if you guys have been following us in the interview that Carolyn and I did a few weeks back, I read it and it immediately, made me think of a play and how it could translate, the dialogue could translate very well to the stage. And so I started thinking about it, and I was just like, okay, I have to write this. I started writing the play based off of the book almost 10 years ago, and it was very overwhelming, and it was it was crazy. It was overwhelming because this was a book that was not fictional, but it was our story. And so that's basically what my connection to the book and why, I wrote the play. I felt our story needed to be told, and I felt like it would be a great opportunity for this story to be told in a different art form. And so that's my little introduction, but I want to formally introduce who we have with us tonight. Or whatever. You might be watching this in the morning time, so I'm just saying tonight because we're recording at night. But I want to formally introduce 3 of the 5 of Penny's kids who are here with us tonight. And so first I would like to introduce, well, you can't see me, but the oldest of Penny's
Yes.
kids. And what is your name?
Crystal. I'm Crystal. I'm the oldest of 5.
Okay. And then we have the second oldest.
I'm the second oldest.
That's you, Ma.
Celeste Nantambu.
And the third oldest, which is my uncle, my beloved Uncle Renard Oliver, who is not here right now. But also we have the 4th oldest, that is
Sheila.
Auntie Sheila. And then the 5th child, which is my Aunt Angela, who in the book, her name is Jazz. And so she's the youngest. So we have 3 of the 5 of Penny's kids that are here tonight. And I just wanted to share a little bit about, share with our friends here about the inspiration behind the book. And just, so often lots of plays and things are written and you don't get a chance to hear from the people that you are either writing about or that you're doing a play about. And so it's a pleasure to have you guys to be able to talk to our friends today and kind of share about your experiences and why you even wrote the book, right? So my first question
Well,
is
should we name who we are in the book? I'm
oh,
Mara.
yes,
I'm
yes,
Mara in the
yes.
book.
You're
I'm
Mara, the second oldest, the oldest
Crystal.
I'm Shoni.
Shoni, and the third oldest, which is my uncle Renard. He is Bruh
Bruh.
in the book and in the play. And then we have Sheila, who is
And I'm Shay.
Shay, that's right. And then the youngest is
It's Jazz.
Jazz.
Yes,
I just want to make sure we get that in.
Yep, yep.
Okay, now your question.
Okay, now my question. All right, so Auntie Chrissy, the oldest.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
what was the inspiration behind writing Penny's Kids? Why did you guys decide to get together and write this book?
Well, the book was originally written, really kind of compiled and brought together back in, like you said, back in 2003. And it was just really heavy on my heart to write about my childhood. I don't know, it might have been part of therapy of just getting things out, but I started to sort of write it by myself. But then as I was in the process of writing the book, it dawned on me that I couldn't really tell the whole story because I would just be telling it from my perspective. And so I really believe the Lord gave it to me. And me being a writer myself, I wrote out my outline and everything. And I took a chance of, engaging all of my siblings. And of course, my sister Celeste, who's Myra in the book, she is always 100% behind me in what I'm trying to do. And so I approached her with it. And I decided that if we all would come together and you could write stories that really impacted you, experience from that time of growing up with mama, what comes to your mind and what memories come, to write about that. And then that was a requirement. I think we wrote 4. And then the 5th, you had to write where you are now. In other words, connect the dots to childhood to adulthood at that time in 2003. So that's how it started, and it sort of snowballed. And it was just so heavy on me that I even went into my 401k and got the money out to self-publish it.
Right. Oh, so yeah, it was self-published, right?
Yes.
So the inspiration behind came from, so a lot of times, not a lot of times, but most of the time in Good Light, we we just consider ourselves storytellers, right? And the power of storytelling is transformational. It's transforming, right? When you tell your story to someone, they're able to make a connection to it. They're able to, heal. And then you yourself is able to heal too, once you kind of get it out. And this book and the play covers a lot of different things. And so one of the biggest things, obviously, that it covers is everyone's experiences. And the play is told from the view of adult children who talk about their experiences with your mother, my late grandmother, whose name was Penny, and Bessie Oliver was her name, because I feel like her spirit is still living and breathing within us. And so I want to make sure I say her name often, because I know that in the past that may not have been the case, as in the book we kind of talk about her struggles. And so Mom, the book and the play is about her struggles with mental illness. And so what was it like growing up with a mother who suffered from mental illness, who suffered from the things that she went through and that she struggled with? What was that like for you?
She suffered with schizophrenia.
Yes.
And it was very, very difficult, because what that meant was that you never knew what was going to happen.
Right.
And from the age of, I would recall back at 8 or 9 years old, it began, and it didn't end until I was probably 19 or 20, and I was
Mm-hmm.
married at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout our whole the early childhood, because when I was younger, 5 and younger, and 6 and 7 and younger, I don't recall anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. But my understanding, from my point of view, and Crystal and Sheila can maybe talk about that too, is that from that point things got bad, and you never, like I said, you never knew what was going to happen. So there was no certainty about our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Mom was one moment okay, and the next moment she wanted you to call her by a different name, or she wanted to experience life in a different manner, or she saw it in a different manner. And so therefore you were always on alert, and we begin to build up some type of systematic approach in handling mama. So relaxing in her, talking to herself, and understanding that was part of her illness. Relaxing in her not sureness of whether she was going to be able to relate to us as kids, because sometimes she wanted you to call her as Queen Elizabeth, so you didn't know how to relate. So it was very
up and down.
Allow to say that, right? Okay.
Yeah. Up and down and not sure. And I think when like the book and the play, kind of mentions this, and we talked about this before, mental illness it's a stigma, like, nobody wants to talk about it, especially in our communities. And, 2020 has been a mess. So I don't even think we have seen, the real impact of, what the pandemic itself, and then the rate, these issues of the things of racism that have happened over the last, been happening forever, but, specifically over this year, just incident after incident, because like racism has always been, it's just getting filmed now, right? And so when when we discuss, another element of the book, mental illness, and then we discuss racism and in the book, and how Penny was often called out of her name. She was a Black woman who didn't have support. And so during that time frame, in the play, we talk about in the 60s. And so Auntie Sheila, what was it like, I'd say, growing up in the 60s and dealing and knowing that, you were, for the most part, in the book, you guys didn't grow up with much, right? And so what was that like?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, so talk to me about what that was like growing up in the 60s and not having much, like being in, the book talks a lot about poverty and, what you guys experienced with that.
Well, we moved around a lot. We didn't we didn't own a home. We all lived in apartment buildings, and they were in proximity of one another. A lot of the streets that we moved on, it looked like we moved every year, because when I got older and I pulled my transcripts for college, I counted how many elementary schools I went to, and it was 11.
My goodness.
11.
Yeah.
Some of them twice, but about 11 different elementary schools that we went to. I know that I went to. So if I went to a different school, then they went to a different school too, until probably they got to high school. And then, you just had to catch the bus to wherever you're going. But as a kid growing up with mom not having a lot, when we had to wash, we had to take our clothes to the laundromat. When we shopped, we went to the grocery store. Mom didn't drive, so either she had to get a jitney to bring us back from the store, or we caught the bus there. And during that time, in the early 60s too, there were more stores, and so
corner store.
Corner store, or either go into like A&P, or I think that was the one that was out when we were younger, but it was the early 60s.
Yeah.
And you still had, as we talked about a little bit, a racism that was definitely still there, being up north here, but it was still there. I remember telling my granddaughter recently about when I remember going with my mother to the store for clothing or something. I don't know. I remember the store, and I was looking at the mannequin, and I pulled the mannequin dress back to see what she had on underneath there. And the person, whoever was on the floor, came by and smacked my hand.
Mm.
Now, I don't know where Mama was, but I'm so glad she wasn't, because the fight would have broke out.
Mm-hmm.
But I know one thing, I left that mannequin alone and went and found her very quickly, So I wasn't peeking under too many mannequins after that, underneath the dresses.
Right.
But it was as we said, there was a lot of uncertainties, a lot of things we just did not have.
Right.